I really never thought I'd be the woman who gave birth alone, because my boyfriend decided to take a vacation with his ex. While I screamed through contractions, he was smiling for the camera with her, by the pool, drink in hand under a bright blue sky. And the worst part? It was my money paying for that trip. Yes, my money. I still can't say it out loud without feeling this mix of rage and heartbreak bubbling up. He used my money to take her to paradise, while I was left to push out our child alone. But let me start from the beginning. Maybe then it will make more sense. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. When I first met Ethan, he wasn't the kind of man you'd expect to be a villain in someone's life story. He was charming, but not too charming. Confident, but not cocky. There was this warmth to him that felt safe, like slipping under a blanket on a cold day. And God, I needed that blanket. I had just come out of a terrible breakup, the kind that shatters your confidence and leaves you questioning every decision you've ever made. I told myself I wasn't looking for anything serious, but then Ethan walked into my life like he had been written into my story. We met through mutual friends at a small dinner party. He made me laugh so hard that night, I actually forgot I was supposed to be guarding my heart. "You have the best laugh," he told me, his eyes crinkling at the corners. It felt so genuine, so disarming. From the very start, he made me feel like I was the only woman in the room, like I mattered, like I was seen. It was intoxicating. Looking back, I realize now there were red flags. They weren't screaming. Not yet. They were whispers. Gentle, quiet warnings that I brushed aside. Like how he always seemed just a little too interested in what I did for work. "I'm so impressed by your career," he'd say, a little too often. "I bet you make good money." At the time, I took it as a compliment. I thought he admired my independence. I thought he respected me for being ambitious. And then there were the small loans. "I just need to tide things over until payday," he'd say, giving me that boyish grin. "It's just temporary." Temporary turned into regular. Regular turned into routine. But I told myself it was fine. Couples support each other, right? And honestly, I loved the feeling of being needed, of being someone he could count on. We moved in together after just 6 months. It felt fast, but it also felt right. We were building something, or at least I thought we were. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified but also excited. I remember staring at the test, my hands shaking and thinking, this is it. This is the next chapter. When I told Ethan, he was over the moon. At least he acted like he was. He lifted me off the floor and spun me around, laughing like we had just won the lottery. "This is the best news ever," he said, and for a little while, I believed him. The first few months of pregnancy were rough. Morning sickness, exhaustion, mood swings, the full package. Ethan was supportive at first. He'd run out to get me ginger tea at midnight. He'd hold my hair back when I couldn't stop throwing up. He even massaged my feet when they swelled up like balloons. But slowly, things began to shift. He started spending more time out with friends, coming home later and later. His texts became shorter, colder. One night, I found him scrolling through pictures of tropical beaches on his phone. "Planning our baby moon?" I joked, trying to keep things light. He didn't laugh. He just shrugged and mumbled something about needing a break. "A break from what?" I asked, genuinely confused. "From all of this," he said, gesturing vaguely around the apartment, as if I and our baby were some kind of burden. It stung, but I swallowed my hurt. I told myself he was just stressed, that it was temporary. I mean, who wouldn't be overwhelmed? We were about to become parents. That's enough to make anyone panic a little, right? At least that's what I told myself. Until the day he asked for a loan to clear his head. "It's just a little getaway," he said. "Just a few days to reset before the baby comes." At first, I was furious. I told him we should be saving every penny for the baby, not blowing it on some selfish vacation. But he played me like a fiddle. "You don't want me to be stressed when the baby arrives, do you?" he asked, his voice soft, persuasive. "Don't you want me to be the best partner and father I can be?" Guilt. Manipulation. Classic. And it worked. God help me, it worked. I wired him the money that same day. Not because I believed him, but because I was too exhausted to fight. Too overwhelmed by swollen feet and endless nausea and the weight of growing a life inside me. Besides, I told myself, what could possibly go wrong? The next day, he was gone. Gone. No goodbye kiss, no reassuring hug, not even a text to say he'd landed safely. Just gone. I tried to focus on myself, on the baby, on breathing through the anxiety clawing at my chest. But then, and I swear I will never forget this moment for as long as I live, my phone buzzed. It was my best friend, Tara. Her message was simple. 4 words that made my heart stop cold. You need to see this. My fingers trembled as I opened the link she sent me. There he was, Ethan, smiling like the world belonged to him, arm draped around a woman I recognized all too well. His ex, the same woman he said was toxic, clingy, and out of his life forever. They were on a beach, smiling, posing like they were newlyweds on their honeymoon. And all I could think, over and over, was, that's my money, that's my money, that's my money. The next photo was worse, so much worse. They were sitting at a candlelit dinner, a massive lobster on the table between them. He had a cheeky grin on his face, feeding her a bite. The caption? Finally living my best life. I wanted to scream. No, I wanted to hurl my phone across the room and watch it shatter into 1,000 tiny, useless pieces. But I couldn't, because the baby kicked just then, hard. It was like my unborn child was reminding me, breathe, stay calm, you're not alone. I placed my hand over my belly, tears blurring my vision. Tara called immediately after. Are you okay? She asked, panic in her voice. No, I whispered, my throat raw. No, Tara, I'm not okay. I could hear her pacing through the phone. I don't even know what to say. He told you it was a solo trip, right? I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yes, he said he needed to clear his head. Well, looks like he cleared it with a side of lobster and a sunburn, she snapped. There was a beat of silence before she continued, her tone softening. Listen, I hate to even say this right now, but there's more. More? What could possibly be worse than this? I went down a rabbit hole, Tara confessed. I checked her account too. She's been posting stories all morning. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. Stories? Yeah, she confirmed grimly. Videos too. Tara sent them to me, and as they downloaded, I held my breath. The first was bad enough, the 2 of them clinking glasses, toasting to new beginnings. The second made my blood run cold. He was in a jacuzzi, his arms stretched along the rim, and she was perched beside him, wearing a smug smile. But it was what he said that twisted the knife deep into my heart. Glad I escaped all that stress back home, he laughed. Finally some peace and quiet before life gets complicated. My stomach turned. Stress back home? Life getting complicated? Was that how he described me? Our unborn child? Our life together? As stress? I felt bile rise in my throat. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was violently sick, tears streaming down my cheeks as I retched into the toilet. This wasn't morning sickness. This was heartbreak in its rawest, ugliest form. When I finally composed myself, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I looked pale, fragile, broken. But then, something shifted. I don't know if it was anger or sheer survival instinct, or maybe the tiny life growing inside me giving me strength, but I felt something deep inside me harden. No, he would not break me. Not like this. Not ever. I wiped my tears, squared my shoulders, and picked up my phone. Tara, I said, my voice steadier now. We're going to document everything. She didn't miss a beat. Already on it. Over the next few days, Tara and I became quiet investigators. Between contractions and checkups, I cataloged every post, every story, every comment he and his ex made. Screenshots, videos, bank statements showing the transfer of funds from my account to his, right before he booked the flights. It was all there, in black and white. And then came the cherry on top. Tara found a tagged post from a third party, a mutual friend of Ethan and his ex, confirming that he had been planning this trip for weeks. Weeks. Long before he asked me for the loan. Long before he pretended he was stressed and overwhelmed. He had never intended to go alone. This was premeditated, cold, calculated, cruel. I felt a fire ignite in my chest. He thought he could humiliate me. He thought he could abandon me at the most vulnerable moment of my life and get away with it. But he had underestimated me. Badly. When the day of my labor finally arrived, I was ready. Not just for the baby, though I had packed my hospital bag with meticulous care. I was ready for him too. Ready for the fallout. I went into labor early in the morning. Tara was by my side within the hour, holding my hand as I breathed through the pain. You're doing amazing, she whispered, brushing my hair back from my damp forehead. In between contractions, she kept me updated. He's still posting, she informed me. scrolling through her phone. Pictures of sunset dinners, poolside cocktails. I squeezed her hand tighter. Good, I rasped. Good? I managed a weak smile. The more he posts, the more proof we have. Tara's eyes sparkled with pride. That's my girl. Through the agony, I felt something remarkable. Control. Even as my body felt like it was being torn apart, I clung to that feeling. Control. It was the one thing he hadn't managed to take from me. And as I pushed through the final stages of labor, with Tara cheering me on and nurses bustling around us, I kept thinking one thing, over and over. This pain will pass. But his humiliation, that's just beginning. When my baby was finally born, a perfect, beautiful little girl, I held her to my chest and felt tears spill over my cheeks. Not from sadness, not from exhaustion, from sheer overwhelming love. Welcome to the world, sweetheart, I whispered. You and me, we're gonna be just fine. The days after the birth were a blur of exhaustion and emotions I can barely put into words. There's something surreal about holding a tiny human in your arms, knowing you grew her from nothing, knowing she depends on you for everything. And yet, even in those foggy, sleep-deprived hours, I never forgot what Ethan had done. If anything, every time I looked at my daughter's perfect little face, I felt my resolve harden. I wasn't going to let him walk away from this unscathed. No, not a chance. Tara visited every day at the hospital, like the absolute angel she is. She brought snacks, fresh clothes, gossip, and updates on Ethan. You are not going to believe this, she said one morning, her eyes wide with disbelief as she scrolled through her phone. I raised an eyebrow, cradling my baby girl against my chest. What now? He posted a video, Tara began, her lip curling in disgust. A live video. I felt my heart thud. What did he say? She took a deep breath as if bracing herself. He's sitting on the beach, all smug, saying he's finally free from stress. He actually said, and I quote, "While some people are stuck in hospitals dealing with drama, I'm here living my best life." My blood turned to ice. Hospitals, dealing with drama. He was talking about me, about the birth of his child, our child. Tara's eyes searched mine, her expression full of unspoken fury. He thinks he's untouchable. I smiled then, but it wasn't a smile of defeat. It was cold. Sharp, dangerous. Let him think that, I said quietly. Let him dig his grave a little deeper. Because what he didn't know was that while he was busy flaunting his so-called freedom, I had already started setting the wheels in motion. I wasn't just saving screenshots anymore. I had spoken to a lawyer, a good one, Tara's cousin to be exact, a fierce, no-nonsense woman named Claire who didn't flinch when I told her everything. Don't worry, Claire had assured me over the phone. We're going to make sure he pays for every single cent, and then some. Once I was discharged from the hospital, Tara picked me up and drove me home. The apartment felt different. Empty, yes, but also liberating. He wasn't there to suck the air out of the room. He wasn't there to sneer at my tired eyes or make snide remarks about my swollen feet. It was just me, my daughter, and a fresh start, and I intended to make the most of it. I spent the next few days gathering every piece of evidence I could find. Bank transfers, messages, social media posts, flight confirmations, even a receipt for the lobster dinner he'd so proudly flaunted. Tara helped me organize everything into a neat, devastating little folder. Justice served cold, she joked as she labeled the file. But we weren't done yet. Not even close. I had a plan. A real, calculated plan. I was going to confront him. Not in private. Not in a quiet, closed-off conversation where he could weasel his way out with apologies and crocodile tears. No, I was going to do it publicly, at the upcoming family brunch his mother had organized, the one he assumed I was too fragile to attend. Surprise, surprise. I wasn't fragile. I was furious. And I was ready. The morning of the brunch, I dressed carefully. I chose a simple, elegant outfit. Nothing flashy, nothing over the top, just understated strength. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Gone was the tired, tear-streaked face from the hospital mirror. In her place stood someone fierce, someone unbreakable. My daughter gurgled softly in her carrier as I adjusted the strap on my shoulder. "We've got this, baby girl," I whispered to her. "Mommy's got this." Tara pulled up outside my building right on time. "You look like you're about to go to war," she said, eyes shining with pride. "I am," I replied simply. The drive to his parents' house was quiet, tense with anticipation. My heart thudded in my chest, but it wasn't fear. It was focus, a laser-sharp clarity I had never felt before in my life. When we arrived, I stepped out of the car with my head held high. Guests were already milling about the garden, sipping mimosas and chatting under strings of white fairy lights. Ethan's family brunch was in full swing. I spotted his mother first. She was fussing over a tray of pastries, her expression frazzled but determined to maintain appearances. "Darling," she exclaimed, rushing over to me. "We weren't expecting you." Her eyes darted to the baby carrier, widening. "Oh, she's beautiful," she added, a little stiffly. "Thank you," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Ethan's father approached next, clearing his throat awkwardly. "Where's Ethan?" I asked, loud enough for the surrounding guests to hear. His mother flinched slightly. He should be here soon," she said. "Perfect. Exactly as planned." I settled into a seat at the long garden table, placing my daughter's carrier beside me. Tara took the seat to my right, her phone subtly recording under the table. Insurance. Guests kept casting glances my way, whispering behind their champagne flutes. I caught snippets of conversation. "Heard she had the baby already." "Thought Ethan was still away. Bit awkward, isn't it? Good. Let them talk. Let them wonder." The tension in the air tightened like a noose as Ethan finally arrived. He strolled in with the swagger of a man who thought the world belonged to him, sunglasses perched on his head, skin tanned from his tropical getaway, grinning like he had just won the lottery. His eyes locked on me, and for a split second I saw something flicker in his expression. Surprise, followed by unease. But he masked it quickly. Well, he said, spreading his arms wide as he approached the table. "Look who decided to join us." His mother shot him a panicked look, but I beat her to it. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied smoothly. He pulled out a chair across from me, still playing the part of the charming host. "I thought you'd still be recovering," he said, his tone laced with fake concern. "Oh, I am," I said, folding my hands neatly in my lap, but I figured this would be the perfect time for a little family update. Silence rippled across the table. All eyes were on me now. Good, that's exactly what I wanted. Tara gave me the tiniest nod of encouragement. I took a breath, steadying my voice. "You see," I began, "while I was in the hospital bringing our daughter into the world, Ethan here was busy." Murmurs spread through the guests like wildfire. I continued, my gaze never leaving his face. "Busy living his best life with his ex-girlfriend," I said, sliding a neatly printed photo across the table. The one of him and his ex in the jacuzzi, smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. Gasps echoed around the garden. His mother's hand flew to her mouth. His father went rigid. Ethan's fake smile faltered, then collapsed entirely. "This isn't what it looks like," he began, his voice tight. "Oh, I think it is," I said, sliding over another photo. The lobster dinner, then the screenshot of his live video, then the bank transfer records. "Should I keep going?" I asked sweetly. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The guests stared at him, waiting, watching, judging. And for the first time, he was the one exposed, exactly where he belonged. Ethan's face was turning a shade of red I had never seen before. For a man who always prided himself on keeping his cool, he looked like a volcano ready to explode, or more accurately, one that already had, and now stood smoking and humiliated in front of a horrified audience. It's not what you think," he stammered. He tried to laugh, as if he could charm his way out of this, like he always had. But the sound came out brittle, hollow. "Ethan," she said sharply, her face pale, "is this true?" He opened his mouth to respond, but I didn't give him the chance. "Oh, it's true," I said, my voice calm but cutting. "And I have more." I pulled out my folder, thick with evidence, and began laying it piece by piece on the table like I was dealing a hand of cards in the most high-stakes game of his life. Screenshots of their flirtatious messages, time-stamped during the weeks I was bedridden with pregnancy complications. Bank statements showing the money transfers from my account right before he booked their luxury flights. His ex's gloating captions, "Finally got him back." My pulse pounded in my ears, but I kept my expression smooth, almost serene. "While I was in labor," I said clearly, so every single person at the table could hear, Ethan was spending my money, dining on lobster, drinking champagne, and enjoying sunset jacuzzis with his ex-girlfriend. A ripple of gas and murmurs spread like wildfire. His mother looked like she might faint. "Ethan," she breathed, shaking her head. "How could you?" He stood abruptly, knocking his chair over. Enough of this, he barked, but his voice cracked at the edges. I could see the panic in his eyes now, raw and unfiltered. Good, I wasn't done yet. Oh, I'm not finished, I said smoothly, lifting my chin, because while you were living your so-called best life, I was delivering your child, alone. I reached down and gently lifted the carrier, revealing our daughter, still sleeping peacefully. A collective intake of breath swept across the table. The reality, the visual reality, of what he had abandoned hit like a hammer. Tara, bless her, spoke up from beside me. She was alone, she said, her voice hard, but not anymore. I placed the final nail in his coffin. A letter from my lawyer, Claire. I slid it across the table towards him. Ethan, I said, you've been served. He stared at the envelope like it was a live grenade. What? What is this? He croaked. Child support, I answered, smiling sweetly. And financial restitution for the funds you stole from me. Murmurs erupted again around us. Some of his relatives didn't even bother to hide their disgust. His father's jaw was clenched so tightly I thought he might snap a tooth. Ethan, his father said coldly, we didn't raise you to behave like this. I almost felt pity for him in that moment. Almost. But then I remembered the smug videos, the taunting captions, the fact that he had left me to one of the most terrifying experiences of my life completely alone. No, I didn't feel pity. Not even a little bit. Ethan's eyes darted from the documents to me, then to the stunned faces surrounding him. You think you've won? He spat, his mask finally crumbling. I don't think, I said softly. I know. Tara's phone was still recording, catching every humiliating second. I locked eyes with him one final time, letting the full weight of my fury and strength burn into him. You wanted to live your best life, Ethan? I said. Congratulations, you're free. But don't you ever think you're escaping the consequences of what you've done. With that, I rose from my seat, scooped up my daughter, and straightened my shoulders. I turned my back on him without another word, feeling the eyes of every single guest following my every move. There was a long, pregnant pause, and then something remarkable happened. Applause. At first, just a few claps, hesitant, unsure, then stronger, louder. His cousin, his aunt, even his mother, who looked torn between tears and fury. They were clapping for me, for standing tall, for refusing to be the victim in his pathetic little drama, for choosing strength, not silence. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them away, lifting my chin higher. I had cried enough for him. No more. Never again. Outside in the fresh air, Tara caught up to me. That, she said, breathless and grinning, was absolutely legendary. I let out a shaky laugh, the adrenaline finally starting to ebb. I feel like I just ran a marathon, I admitted. You did, she replied, a marathon of pure badass energy. She wrapped me in a hug, careful not to jostle the baby. You're free now, she whispered, and for the first time in weeks, I believed it. I truly believed it. In the days that followed, the fallout from the brunch spread like wildfire. Claire filed the necessary paperwork, and let's just say, Ethan was about to become very familiar with the inside of a courtroom. His ex dumped him in a spectacular public post, exposing even more of his lies. Apparently, he had told her he was childless and single, a free man. What a joke. His job caught wind of the scandal, too. Turns out, companies don't love it when their employees go viral for all the wrong reasons. He was let go with immediate effect. Tara sent me the news with a flurry of celebratory emojis. Guess karma really is a butch, she wrote. I couldn't help but smile. Life had a funny way of balancing the scales. I may have started this journey in pain, abandoned and humiliated, but I was ending it empowered, supported, and stronger than I ever thought possible. One evening, as I rocked my daughter to sleep, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. There I was, a new mother, a survivor, a woman reborn from the ashes of betrayal. I pressed a kiss to my baby's forehead and whispered, "It's just you and me now, little one, and we're going to be just fine." And for the first time, I truly felt it deep in my bones. We were going to be more than fine. We were going to thrive. They say time heals all wounds. I don't know if I believe that entirely. Some wounds leave scars, no matter how much time passes. But here's what I've learned. Scars don't make you weaker. They make you wiser. Every time I catch my reflection and notice the shadows under my eyes or the faint lines of exhaustion, I remind myself what they really are. Badges of survival. Proof that I endured the storm and came out stronger on the other side. There are still tough days, of course. Nights when I wake up in a cold sweat, replaying his words in my head. His laughter, his smug face in those vacation videos, the echo of his voice calling our life together stress. But then I look at my daughter, her tiny hand curled around my finger, her peaceful breath against my chest. She is my reminder that beauty can grow out of betrayal, that even from the worst pain, something pure and precious can emerge. I think about who I was before all of this. The woman who excused his lies, who wired him money, hoping he would be grateful, who let herself believe that love meant sacrificing everything, even her self-respect. That woman is gone. She had to die so I could become the woman I am now. The woman who doesn't beg for love, the woman who demands respect, the woman who looks at betrayal and says, never again. Sometimes I wonder if Ethan ever truly loved me, but I've stopped losing sleep over that question.
3 years of my life.
Here's the truth. Some men don't know how to love a good woman until it's too late. Until she's gone, standing tall and unshakable, while they're left crawling through the ruins of their own bad decisions. And by then she doesn't even care anymore. That's the sweetest victory of all. No begging, no pleading, just silence. His messages now go unread. His calls go unanswered. And every time I see his name flash across my phone screen, I smile. Because I remember who I am, because I remember what I survived, because I remember that I owe him nothing. Nothing at all. So if you're watching this, if you've ever felt broken, used, or abandoned, hear me when I say this. You are not weak for loving someone who didn't deserve you. You are not foolish for giving your heart, even if they crushed it. But you are powerful for picking up the pieces and rebuilding yourself stronger. Stronger than they ever imagined. Stronger than they can ever handle. And as for Ethan, well, let's just say he underestimated the wrong woman.